Okay, I guess I'm live. This light is like super bright. All right, time to get started. How do I get started? I think I'll go through the history and then go through the timeline. Can't believe this is backwards. Why is this backwards? Anyway, convert. Um, Keith Nestor, this is where this came from. If you don't know him, look him up. He's a former Methodist pastor who is a Catholic convert from about 3, 4 years ago. He has a really cool story. If you haven't heard it, I highly suggest you look that up because his conversion is amazing. He's a great speaker and doing good things now with what he calls the Rosary Crew and other things. So look him up. Um, my history, we'll start there. I was born and raised and confirmed Lutheran. Like most kids, you do what your parents want you to do, which is, usually their faith. And even though I had a draw to the Catholic Church, I did what was expected, like everyone else. As kids, you really don't pay attention long enough to know what you're getting into. So that is where my history starts. But unbeknownst to my mother, um, she didn't know the family history. If we look back at my wife and I's family history, our families were 50 miles apart from all the way back hundreds of years ago from Germany to when the families both moved to Ukraine and when they moved to the United States. They were always 50 miles apart. And when her family was over there, they were always Protestant. Well, everyone thought mine was the same thing, but unbeknownst to most people, until they moved to America, my family was always Catholic. So my wife just came in, so I got to stop her. But that was the history of that. So I'd always had a drawn to the Catholic Church, but unbeknownst to me and everyone in my family, we had been Catholic until they moved to the US where they became Protestant. I'm not sure why. But anyway, maybe that's why I was always drawn to it. I don't know, but I always had this feeling like I wanted to be in the Catholic Church, but I never followed through with it or didn't understand why. So let's move forward to dates that mean something. You'll notice this tattoo here. It has 1227 on it. I originally got this tattoo for my stepfather who died last year. And I put 1227 on there because I started my conversion on December 27th. Well, we'll get to that a little bit later, but the first date was 1227, 1998. That's when my biological father had died. And wasn't really close to him. He and my mother divorced when I was about 5 years old, and I maybe saw him 3 times after that. So, he's my father, but didn't really know him well enough to really have that bond. And then remember that date. We moved forward 12 years, 2010, and I had a heart attack on December 27th, which is ironic enough. But at the time, I didn't put the two together. We moved forward to last year when my stepfather died. He was like a hero or someone I really looked up to more than anyone else. He was an important person that came into our lives in the 80s, my sister and I, and was the center of the entire family. So we all took it really hard, but for some reason, without me really telling anybody, I was really not in a good place when he had died. So roundabout Christmas time, the smallest of all things, like a pet issue, sent me over the edge, and I got extremely vocal, and I was on the edge. I wasn't in a good place. And my wife and I have never fought, never argued, nothing. And that day when that happened, being that upset, it actually scared her. And that bothered me a great deal. So on December 27th of all days, you see what's going on here? I wanted to talk to somebody. And instead of going to the Lutheran Church, which I was confirmed in, for some reason, I went to Pro Cathedral of St. Mary in Bismarck, the Catholic Church, one of the Catholic churches. I went in there to talk to somebody, couldn't find anybody. There was nobody available. It's nothing against them, just some churches don't have people on hand all the time. But I went past the candle station and there's a statue of Jesus there. I don't know if it's because of what was going on or being in front of Jesus, but some of the priests have said I saw the Holy Spirit when this happened. But I went down to my knees and I couldn't stop weeping. I was sorry. I was weeping for quite some time, and I wasn't sure if it was guilt, sadness for losing my stepfather, or my embarrassment with the way I acted in front of my wife that scared her, combination of everything, or that seeing Jesus's face, everything I had done, how I had lived, I wasn't proud of and felt guilty in front of him for it, and in front of my stepfather, who to me I was sure he was looking upon me at the same time. So I really had a hard time even getting out of there, but I needed to talk to somebody. So I decided to go to the main church, the Cathedral of the Holy Spirit here in Bismarck. And I had asked somebody who was working after a baptism if there was anybody to talk to, if there was a priest to talk to. And he said, well, there's a deacon. He just did a baptism. So I helped. He said, can you help me until he's available? Tearing down. So I kind of took a step back. I was like, oh, okay, sure. And I was happy to help. I just didn't expect that. And kind of like walking into your own home, you have something to do, help me. But it was kind of amusing, kind of put me in a little calmer state because I'm not sure if that's what he was trying to do, but it did help me calm me down a little bit. And when the deacon came out, we sat down and I told him my story. And in the middle of it, I said, I can't even look at that pit because they had a picture of Jesus over there along the wall, which they have a lot of different paintings of wall paintings that show experiences in his life while he was here on earth. And one of them was him with his heart here. I forget what that's called at the moment while I'm talking, but anyway, I said, I can't even look at his face. And he said, why do you say that? Why can't you look at him? And I said, I don't know. I don't know if it's guilt or like I failed him or something. Or something like that. So sorry. But I said, I just can't look at his face. And he said, well, your story is beautiful. And I'm glad you came in to talk. And I said, well, I also told him at that point all the history of being drawn to the church and that. And I was curious about it. And he said, well, if you're really curious, let's look into the RCIA program and see how you feel after that. I can get you started in that. I'll do that for you. And I agreed. And I left there thinking, okay, he's going to help me get information to see about this whole Catholic thing that I've always been kind of drawn to. But by the time I got home, I have this personality where once I start something, I can't stop. And I got online and started looking at YouTube stuff about people's conversions and about the Catholic Church. And I come across a guy called Keith Nestor, who you can get this shirt from. Great guy. And I saw a video of his conversion. And at one point in it, he was watching this man talk. And I don't know if it was he or a priest that told him when he was talking about the same issues about he didn't know what to do, kind of like where I was at. And I had been thinking about it all these years, but never did anything. Well, that was the same kind of struggle he had. And the guy looked at him and said, "You need to make a decision." And he said, "Well, I'm working on it." And he goes, "No, you need to make a decision. He said, um, delayed dis, when does delayed obedience become disobedience?" And when he said that, I mean, boom, it hit me really hard. And that's when I decided right there that, yes, this is what I want to do. And this is what God's plan was all along. So thanks to Keith Nestor and that video helped push me to where I was already thinking for quite some time, unbeknownst to myself already, but especially in that moment. So we shoot forward from that moment. I went through the entire RCIA, and then our class got so close together that we wanted to do more classes. So after April, we did another course that went into the summer, and all great people, really focused on their faith, and even a couple young ones that are so intelligent, it just blew my mind. But we got done with that, and in the fall, we got just so busy with our lives that we decided we'll do some more later. Well, at that point, I had started, I was struggling because I didn't have a marriage before, but my wife had a very short 2 week thing that I'm not going to get into because that's her personal life, but it has since been resolved as of today. But before that, I was looking at patron saints just to get my mind off of that part, the weight thing that can take a long time in the Catholic Church. And I was looking through and I got to the end of one of the books that I have on all the saint days, all the saints in there. And December 27th came along and St. John the Apostle was in there. Well, it got my mind working and I thought, I wonder if there's anything in John's book in the Bible on that verse, 1227. Could it, would God work that way too? And I looked in the Bible and this is what it said. And it kind of goes with, Jesus's struggle in the garden, trying to, the end is coming and his struggle with it himself. And where I was at in that church that day, almost a year before, when I needed help, what was going through my mind. And they shockingly kind of go together. I am troubled now, yet what should I say? Father, save me from this hour. But it was for this purpose that I came to this hour. So God put me there. And that's why I was going through what I was going through, to push me over the edge to come to him and his church. I can't even explain to you what that did to me when I read that passage out of the Bible. I just blew my mind. So that got my mind working some more. Here's this 1227 coming at me again. It just keeps hitting me, the saint day. And obviously, I'm choosing John the Apostle as my patron saint. But I went further from the passage that comes from those numbers too. And I went to church the next day, went to Mass, and I sat in the same pew at Pro Cathedral of St. Mary every week. I sit in the same pew, same spot. And I happen to sit down, I happen to look up at the stained glass that's right next to that pew. Every day, that stained glass was of St. John right above me every day. And, it's getting to the point where I'm finding things and it's mind boggling. I don't even know what to think of it anymore. He's always been there and always pushing me to be with him and in his church. So any questions I had of, is this where I should be? They're gone. I mean, it's obvious. I don't even know how to question that anymore. But today I found out that the annulment process having to do with that 2-week wedding. The church annulled it, and they said my wife and I's marriage is now validated by the Catholic Church. So we're accepted by the Catholic Church in our marriage. And I'm open to set up my confirmation into the church, which should be scheduled as of next week when people are back from the holidays. The only thing I fear is my first confession for all the things that I've done in my life, because I have to do 53 years of confession. But anyone, I didn't tell you, but I always have this because it gives me comfort. Pray the rosary. Trust me, pray the rosary. The Rosary Crew on Keith Nestor's website, great source to get started. Does it every day, 5 o'clock. But anyway, anyone that's struggling with getting into the Catholic Church, just like the priest, Father Eli told me, said, just stick with it. God creates miracles. Believe in him. Keep doing what you're doing. Go to Mass. Keep absorbing all your faith as much as you can. He'll make it happen like he did with me. Just stay focused on your faith and getting closer to God. I promise you it'll happen. So that's what happened with me. That's my conversion story. It's unbelievable. It's a miracle. He's always been there with me, and I didn't even know it. Now I do, and I see him everywhere. Everywhere. Take care of yourselves, and God bless you.